Okay, all right. So this video is going to be an intro to cross-examination, the style. Now this is Canadian, so not to be confused with the NSDA Cross-Ex. So that's policy. It's a whole different thing. This video does come after CNDF intro, so therefore we're not going to go over like the basics of debate, etc. And the point of debate, it's basically the same as CNDF. The only differences are somewhat minor in terms of the style. The goals and everything are the same. It's just how it's done is slightly different. So some of the rule sets work a little bit different. Okay, so first we're going to look at speaking order and speaking times. It is slightly different than CNDF. This is the juniors times. All of this is going to be basically the same for the seniors, except they get 1 minute extra in some of the speeches, which we will show in a moment. So first proposition opens the debate as always, much like CNDF, and they go for 4 minutes. Then the first opposition cross-examines the first proposition for 3 minutes. We're not going to cover what cross-ex is just yet. We'll cover that in a bit. But basically, there's a questioning period. Then first opposition goes for 4 minutes. Then the second proposition cross-examines the first opposition for 3 minutes. Then second proposition goes for 7 minutes. Second opposition crosses second proposition for 3 minutes, then second opposition goes for 7 minutes, then first proposition cross-examines second opposition for 3 minutes. So the way that you can think about this is the speaker that is going to speak cross-examines the speaker that just spoke. So this means that first opposition, when they're about to speak, will cross-examine the speaker that goes before them. Now, second opposition obviously doesn't have anyone who is going after them, technically. And so this means that the first proposition, who hasn't had a chance to cross-examine anybody, will cross-examine them. And that's basically it. The idea is that there's a question period to get all the information and the necessary concessions that they need out of their opponents before they get to speak. This means that this person speaking after always examines the person speaking before. So that's kind of the way that you can remember it, because this chart will be a little bit confusing to follow. But again, all of this will be on the website, so therefore don't worry too much about memorizing this. Then there's a 2-minute intermission. This time is for debaters to prepare their summaries. Now, they're not allowed to leave the room or anything like that. It isn't a water break. This is when they get to silently prep with their partner a summary speech. Now, the summaries are all done by the first speaker, and opposition goes first for 3 minutes, then proposition goes for 3 minutes. There is no cross-examination period in between the summary speeches. Okay, so that's basically the idea behind speaking orders and speaking times for juniors. Now, for the senior cross-examination, it is the exact same speaking order, except first speakers get 5 minutes, second speakers get 8 minutes, and that's it. So therefore, they all get 1 minute additional speaking time. However, the cross-examinations period stay the same, and the summary speeches stay the same. Now let's talk about cross-examination periods. What is cross-examination? Basically, this is the time during which teams will directly engage with each other. Okay, so there is no POIs in this style, no points of information like CNDF. So nobody gets to interrupt speeches in the middle. What happens instead is that after the speech, the speaker that's coming after will be able to examine the speaker that just went. So there is an examiner and an examinee. The person asking the questions must ask questions. The person answering the questions must answer questions. So what this means is that the examiner cannot monologue without a question, just basically use this as additional speech time. They're not allowed to do that. However, the examinee also cannot ask questions back except clarification questions. This means that they should not be getting into a debate with one another where the examiner will ask a question and then the examinee will answer it and then ask a question back, and then the examiner will answer that and then ask a question back. That's not how this is supposed to work. It's question, answer, back and forth, and that's it. So examiners must ask questions. However, they are allowed to have leading questions where they kind of make a statement and then they tag a question at the end, blah, 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 isn't this true? Or don't you believe that this is true? Or something like that. That's fine. However, then the examinee must answer those questions. Now, the examinee obviously must answer the questions. They cannot just choose to not answer it. They can say, I don't know. That's obviously a big no-no, and that's going to, impede their ability to properly debate the motion. They are allowed to make concessions, however, they still must answer the question. They cannot just simply deny and be like, I don't want to answer that question. Now, the examiner can cut off an answer if it's becoming redundant or it is rambling. This I will leave up to the discretion of the judges. However, obviously, the examiner must allow for enough time to answer questions properly, right? They cannot just cut them off and, as soon as they start speaking. If it's a yes/no question, the person answering questions still must be given time to be able to explain their answers, right? So for example, if it's, isn't this true? They can say yes, but blah, right? Now, if they start rambling on and they start going away from the actual core of the question, this is when the examiner can say, okay, thank you, I understand. And again, the examiner technically has control of the floor, so the examinee has to listen. Now, with this period, okay, a couple things. Firstly, is that this is where clarifications occur between when this first opposition cross-examines the first proposition. This is when any clarification with the model should occur. Secondly, is cross-examination periods are a time for them to engage with each other. So it should be somewhat heated. It should be lots of contentious questions and answers back and forth. However, there's obvious necessity for decorum and politeness, and so therefore judges should be looking for that, and people should not be shouting over each other. That is also a big no-no. So that's basically cross-examination period. In terms of speeches, it will sound mostly the same with CNDF. In terms of cross-examination periods, that's the only thing that's really going to differ from the CNDF speeches that perhaps you've heard in the past. And so with that, we kind of conclude the cross-examination briefing.